After leaving the hospital and coming home without my daughter was very traumatic. There's nothing worse than leaving the hospital and knowing that your child is not going to come with you. I went back into my family's house, and now my cousin's fiance was there, and everybody was at the house, and they were excited to see me, and I felt the same way, but I left a part of me at the hospital. It was hard for me to get sleep. It was hard for me to get rest. It was hard for me to do anything because I felt like where I wanted to be was not here. I wanted to be at the hospital with my daughter, but I knew that I had to come back home because my husband was exhausted. My aunt had been watching our middle son. My grandmother had been taking care of my oldest son, and so therefore my husband can work, and he was back and forth between jobs in the hospital, and it was just becoming a lot. So me going home, I felt like maybe this would be something that I can start trying to, take care of the kids and just doing things so I can get my mind off of what was taking place at the time. What was taking place at the time was that my father-in-law was not around anymore. He had passed away due to a trucking accident where he ended up snapping his neck in the truck. The man that was driving the truck was left untouched. Nothing was wrong, but my father-in-law was no longer with us. Knowing that he was gone was a wet blanket over our family. It was definitely something that we mourned heavily, and it was even worse because my father-in-law and my husband were not on the best of speaking terms at the time. I remember when my family, um, my husband and my aunt's husband and my aunt's son, they were drinking and, calling themselves having a great time in the house. This is when I was pregnant. My aunt's husband had said to my husband, "You need to mend things with your father before things become too late." It was only months after that he passed away. Do I feel like that was a coincidence? Definitely not. I started seeing the shapes of my relatives in a different light. They were they were different. There were talks about, us being beneficiaries, my husband being a beneficiary, and so there was things that were being said like you guys might receive some type of insurance money or some type of money, and their attention seems like it was more on that aspect than anything else. My daughter was still in NICU. Our hearts were still broken. There were things that we were going through, and we could not even share these things with my family because at this point, like I said, the only thing that they were hearing and seeing was there was money involved or about to be money attached to this situation. And me knowing how my family was, I knew that any sounds of money was going to alert not just them, but the whole entire family. I ended up getting sick. I would go back and forth to the hospital every single night to see my baby girl, and that was the only time that I had because throughout the day I was being mom to my boys and trying to make sure that I was still taking care of my incisions and making sure that I was okay. But to be honest, I was not getting sleep, and I was exhausted. I wasn't feeling well, and I was in a very low sinking depression. I started going to the hospital at nighttime, and it was around, December, so it was cold. And I started getting sick. I started not to feel well. I started to feel myself slowly feeling like something is wrong. My aunt would tell me to not go to the hospital. She would say, you don't want to keep going to the hospital. You need to give your body some rest. I know you want to see your baby girl, but she needs you to be in your best state. I wasn't hearing that. I couldn't hear it. It was like I felt like if I didn't see her, that something would happen. Like if I didn't see her, that she would forget me. If I didn't see her, that I wouldn't be okay. If I didn't see her, I just felt like it was just, I just needed to see her. I needed to see my daughter. I needed to see her every day. Every time I seen her, it was like I felt like I slipped away from all of the bullshit, and everything just slowed down in a peaceful state. So I needed to see her. Home was becoming a lot more toxic at this time because now, like I said, we had my aunt's son's girlfriend, fiance living there. It was just becoming so much, and I felt like that right now I am displaying all of my pain in front of all of you, and it's like nobody really cared. It's like nobody cared. It's like I had to um act like as if I wasn't in as much pain as I was. Losing my husband's father, his cousin, and then me getting sick and then going to the hospital and having my daughter in NICU for 2 months. This shit was a lot. It was a lot, but it seemed like everybody else was around us thinking that because of the fact that you guys could be possibly getting money from this, that you should be okay, that everything should be okay, but everything was not okay. Finding out that I had double walking pneumonia was scary, but finding out that I had a enlarged heart only months from finding out that I had pneumonia was even scarier. At this time, my husband was working, and the only person that would be able to feed me, take care of me, give me soups and teas and tonics was my aunt. My aunt would feed me all types of soups, and I would throw up, and she would give me tonics, and I would throw up, and she would give me all types of teas, and I would throw up. And it was so much things that I was going through at this time. I remember having a period of time where I was out of it, and I was channeling or speaking to God, and God was asking me, "Were you ready?" I remember looking and saying, "No, I'm not ready. I have a kid, that's sitting right next to me." My 2 year old was in a high chair sitting right next to me, watching me slip in and out of consciousness. My daughter was still in NICU, and my husband was just still going through losing his father. I knew that if I passed away, my family would take my children. They would take my children away from my husband. They would have taken my children because of the fact that they had always wanted full control. I knew that I could not give up on myself, but it was becoming a fight. It was becoming a fight. There was something that was keeping me sick. There was something that was keeping me sick, and don't matter how much I would get up and be okay, by the next couple of moments, I found myself even in a worse predicament than I was in before. I was having my family come up to my room and check my vitals like if I was in the ER almost every single day. Trying to breathe at this time was like trying to breathe out of a straw. My breath grew more thinner and thinner with every single day that passed. I finally went to the hospital, and they told me that I wasn't going through double walking pneumonia anymore. I had an enlargement of my heart. They told me that I had to, you know, be on, this medicine that would make me, remove all of the fluids from my body. They started doing a lot of different things. And if it wasn't for my doctor, who was an angel at this time, she was one of the doctors that helped to fight and save my life. I remember just thinking to myself, like, why is this all happening? Like, what is happening right now? Like, what is it that I did, God? What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm not paying attention to? I was now in the hospital only 2 floors underneath my daughter's NICU. She had been in there for 2 months. My husband was working and taking care of the kids and taking care of me and going through losing his father, the depression of that, trying to make sure he seen his daughter every time he had available. And there was no one that was helping us at this time. My aunt didn't have a job or anything, but she told my husband that maybe he should think about leaving his job so that he could better take care of me and my daughter. So this meant that once again, not only were we in the predicament that we were in, but then now he would not have a job to be able to get the things that we need. So this meant us now having to rely on my family again. I felt like a burden. I felt like I was burdening my husband by him having to quit his job. I felt like a burden to my family because they were tired of taking care of me. I felt like I was just a burden to the world. Maybe this is why my life was so bad. Maybe this is why I had been through everything I was going through. I felt really, really bad. And I now was in a space where I had to rely on people. I couldn't even walk to the bathroom once I got home by myself because I would be so out of breath from just walking from my room to the restroom. Me and my daughter, we healed together in the hospital and we came home. We got back, we was discharged the same day and I was able to leave and go to my family's house. At this time now, my husband had already quit his job so that he could continue to be there for me and my daughter. Not only now was I going through a lot of appointments, but now she had back to back appointments because she came home with a breathing machine. The whole time that she was at the hospital, she kept losing breath and having a hard time trying to breathe on her own. We would watch her in the room while the doctors was pounding on her chest trying to get her to breathe. When we came home, it's like God said, now we're about to start this next mission. When my daughter came home, I had a dream, and in the dream I took her off of her milk that the hospital had her on. I put her on all organic, medicines, herbal things, and I took her off of the milk and I put her on hemp milk. There was just so many different things that I was doing within this dream. I woke straight up and I looked at my husband and said, I'm ordering her some new milk. It was around 3 a.m. and I'm sitting on the app on Target and I'm ordering her milk in new bottles and everything is because God was telling me, you need to get her off of this machine. The doctors have her on this machine because this is how they make their money. The longer you keep her on this machine, she's going to become codependent to this machine. At this time, I had, my aunt and my grandmother in my ears saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. My husband was a little skeptical, but once I broke it down to him, he was like, yeah, switch to milk. We switched to milk, and instantly we started seeing development with my daughter. She started being able to do a lot more things that she was doing when she first came home. Spirit told me, now take her off her breathing machine. Take her off her breathing machine. I'm thinking, but if I take her off her breathing machine, then what if something should happen? Spirit said, trust me. At this time, I was having a lot of spiritual conversations with myself. I didn't tell anybody about what was happening to me. I didn't tell anybody what I was starting to hear. I didn't tell anybody anything because even when I was a young kid and I would tell my grandmother that I could sense certain things when I enter a room and I had certain dreams and I would have visions and all these things, my grandmother would tell me she was the same way, but don't tell people that because if you tell people, they're going to think you're crazy. So I never told anybody. I never told anybody how how strong my intuition was. I never told anybody how I could have a dream that somebody was going to pass away and that shit would happen. I never told anybody how I can sense if I was going to be in danger or if this was going to be a great situation and it would happen just like that. The only people that knew about this was my family, because telling them was not like telling from what they would say the outside world where people would judge you. My family was not um new to gifts. Like I keep saying inside of this video, my family had a lot of gifts. My family was so in tune with they were so connected with gifts that if we were all in a room, we could almost kind of sense what each other were thinking and feeling because of the fact that God had put so many different gifts within my family. But like I said, when you are dark, your gifts will darken too. Your gifts will darken, and those gifts that were created for you to use for light purposes, you will now use those gifts in to create dark purposes until God snatched those gifts away from you. I was in my family and I knew that, they had a lot of different, things that they could sense and they could feel. But what I was starting to sense and feel was different. It was like when I left the hospital, I had a group that just came with me. Sometimes I would want to tell my family certain things, not about my gifts, but just about anything. Like, let's say if I wanted to go to the store, I would want to tell my family, and I would hear something say, don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Don't tell them. Don't say nothing. So I started making a lot of decisions on my own that I was feeling, and I just started moving on those. So when I had, a connection. So when I went to Spirit and Spirit said, I want you to change the milk, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. When Spirit said remove the breathing machine, that's exactly what I did. I covered over my daughter every single day and I took her off that breathing machine, and within weeks, my daughter was all the way off of her machine, breathing on her own without nothing, not a trace of anything that she had left the hospital with. This girl was almost holding her own bottle, sitting up and doing things on her own. And the doctors had told me that she was delayed and she would always have a problem. She showed no signs of that though. She showed no signs of that though. It was me listening to God and believing in what God said and trusting in that created me to step out on faith, to get her a new milk, to get her new bottle, to take her off this machine, and to start standing up within my marriage. I went from letting my family make decisions when it came to my kids to I started keeping my kids in my room. I started telling my son, stop, hanging around his cousin so much because I didn't like the fact that, him hanging out with his cousin was now starting to change him. He started doing a lot of different things that was not what I would feel like for my child appropriate. So I started telling him to stay in my room. We started going out, we started doing the park a lot more. And as because of the fact that I was now meditating and doing chakras and all this stuff, because of the fact that I had saw something online and it was saying how meditation can really help with stress levels. Me knowing that I had something going on, I felt like this would definitely help me to know how to combat some of this stress that I'm going through. So I started doing meditation, nothing too serious, really light. And I started writing in my journal. Writing in my journal was saving me. Writing in my journal was the most peaceful I had ever been. I started, grounding. I started implementing grounding. We would go to the park and hug trees and sit in nature and look at bees and let the sun shine on us. And it was like we were entering into a whole new world. Source told me to stop listening to certain music. I was sitting outside one day and God was like, you need to change the music you listen to. Um, it was just a feeling that came to me. It was just a feeling that came to me. And so I started listening to, more neo soul, more sultry type of music, frequencies and things like that. even gospel, just different things that would kind of like uplift my spirit. At that time, I was listening to a lot of Megan Thee Stallion, a lot of rap, a lot of, urban type of music. And God was saying, I need you to just shift what you're listening to. Right after that, it became what I was watching. It was like I would try to watch TV and try to, do the things that I was doing before, the same things I was doing before. But it was like God was pushing me and nudging me. You need to turn your TV off. This is not what you need to be watching. Don't watch TV. I started feeling like maybe I came from the hospital and now I am starting to lose my mind. It was everything that I was doing before that God was saying, I don't want you to do no more. I don't want you to do no more. Me going from listening to me, listening to my music to not listening to music, watching, my little ratchet TV to not watching TV at all, not watching TV at all. It started to, show in the house. People started to ask me, was I okay? What was happening to me? I'm so different now. And I couldn't really explain to them what was happening because honestly, I did not even know myself. I did a lot of having conversation with God. I was going over my life at this time. So many things had happened in a short span of time, but actually it took a long time, a big chunk of my life. I was thinking about how um I'm in and out of the hospital and going to these appointments and going through everything that I'm going through at this moment and trying to put on my brave face that everything is okay and remain strong. And um it was like I was going over my life and thinking about what was valuable and what wasn't. I started having a different relationship with God. I started seeking God inside of me. I started looking inside of me and saying, well, if God is supposed to, connect with me, am I not supposed to be a clean person, If God loves me, then wouldn't God want me to do what's best for me? Wouldn't God want me to stand up for myself? Wouldn't God want me to do these things? As I grew closer to God, God grew even closer to me. I started to get on TikTok and I was all in my phone like all the time. Half of the world was, now we was glued to TikTok. I got into these videos and I ended up on what they would call the dark side of TikTok with tarot readings and all of these things, and I just started connecting in a different way. And I felt happy, but then I also felt like, oh, this is going to leave me even with a bigger stain because my family had always been so religious, even though they never knew what religion exactly. It was always the one with the biggest collection, okay? But they were practicing some type of religion. And anything outside of that was dark, demonic, and this and that. But I had always paid attention to, well, then why did these things peek through sometimes? I started joining the Zoom meetings, their Bible studies. I wanted to connect to God. So I'm thinking, well, then let me just go ahead and go to these Bible studies then. Let me just do that. So I started doing the Bible studies and I started, getting into my word. I started reading my Bible, but it was some questions that I was having. I did a lot of questioning. I had a question. I wanted to know why Mary didn't matter in the Bible, but a smidgen of a portion when she is giving birth to Jesus. I wanted to know why were people now worshiping and giving their all to the pastor, and the pastor is corrupt. And you don't even have the courage enough to say, I know that I can connect to God and I can get the same frequency that this pastor can, maybe even more. I started having so many questions and I started asking questions. I would come to the meetings and I would think that, wow, this is where we can lay our burdens down. And, y'all saying that we're trying to be better and we're doing this. So I had questions. Why doesn't goddess matter? Why is it always God, 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 God? This is a man's world. I had these questions and they were looking at me like if I was now a villain. I had become a villain. I had become, oh shit, so you are wicked. Is that what's wrong? Is that what's wrong with you? You're wicked? Or maybe they were looking at me like, wow, she's awakening. She's opening her eyes. She's stepping into her truth. But whatever the look was, it was like, oh, why are you doing this thing? Asking you these questions that we just don't ask. I started to realize that what I was in was not a family at all. It was something different. This was a cult. Sometimes they would have these Bible studies that would turn into a whole pyramid scheme. Like you would be sitting amongst, your family and having these things. And I remember one time my uncle, he was hosting the Bible study. And he's saying, this is not a pyramid scheme, but I want you all to put your money into this thing. And at the end of the year, we're going to give that money to a family. We're going to sponsor a family. And so every single month we will take a portion of your money and put it into this thing so y'all can get a house or whatever and whatever. And this is how we'll take care of each other inside of this hit said village. I was thinking to myself, I don't have this to give to something that's uncertain that I would even be the winner at this moment. This is not something that I want to be a part of. And I started being looked at as, oh, you're not behaving inside of this dynamic. You're not behaving inside of this system. So slowly but surely, I started to pull myself back. And I said, you know what? I'm about to just do my own thing. I started staying to myself, and slowly I started to hear, through my family that they stopped their Zoom meetings, they stopped their Bible studies but by this time I was too far gone. God had picked me up and swung me over and started to work on me in a way that the veil was falling off every single day. My gifts that I thought I had became strengthened in that moment. And God started saying, here I am, my love. I've been here with you. I've been here with you. I've been here with you. It was God that was healing me. Healing me. Do you hear me? Healing me. I was starting to feel free. I started to remember one of my favorite artists, Tina Turner, okay? Her story, what love got to do with it. When Angela Bassett plays this part and she's in the movie and she starts to learn to chant, that moment started to resonate with me, how she was able to connect to something outside of this realm to bring herself to peace. My family, they stopped doing their Bible studies. So, one day my mother, she calls me and she's like, I think that what we should do is leave the guys out of it. And we should, as the women, pick this up and continue doing it because it was good. And I She was like, I understand your questions that you had because I have always had these same questions too. Every last question you've had, so have I. And so she was like, so let's go ahead and try to do this thing with your grandmother and your aunt. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm fine. I'm on fire at this moment for God. Do you hear me? Because God was healing me. God was restoring me. I had now stopped eating meat and I'm doing good within myself. I'm drinking water. I mean, I'm pouring into Mother Earth. I am on fire for God and knowledge about self. I am into me, and that's being into God at this moment. Do you hear me? I am awakening. This is what I'm doing. And this is what a lot of you guys are doing. You have been researching and looking at videos and trying to see what the hell is happening. I'm starting to see this person, they starting to look a little different. They're shapeshifters. Yes. I'm starting to see that this is yes, destiny swapping. There's words for this shit, but people feel like this shit's not happening. It's not happening. And you take it as it resonates to you. But I'm talking to the spiritual ones, the enlightened ones that know what the fuck I'm talking about. Those are the ones that this video is for. You have been looking into something, a window, okay? This is like Morpheus, okay? You done went down the rabbit hole and you done started to see through the bullshit. And now you are seeing that, this is a generational curse. That's what this is. I started saying, I am in peace being by myself. To be by myself? When have I ever been able to be by myself? I have always given. When I would leave one situation, I would end up right inside the same. I was going through one karmic cycle after karmic cycle after karmic cycle because I was on a damn wave and this was the damn chain, the shingalingalings that I was talking about. That's what this was. It took me to be under so much spell work that I was literally in the hospital now fighting for my life. But still yet God said, this will not prevail. This is only me showing you what the hell is happening. You can keep sitting here and say that I'm in depression, that I'm in uncertainty, that I'm going to give this person my everything and I'm going to pour into this situation. I'm going to keep on saying here, I'm not going to be honest with myself. The way people treat you is fucked. You know you need to cut some shit off, but you keep sitting here and you want to keep sitting here and keep sitting here. I'm showing you. What do you want to do? This was my awakening too. Now, from this moment on, you might think what I'm saying, that I'm fucking crazy. Because this shit gets real spiritual. But this is mask off. I started feeling like I need to be by myself. I cried every day, quietly. Well, in my part of the house, no one could hear me. I was now inside of the space where my cousin and his fiance was living before they got married. They ended up getting married at this time. And the last time we had all been together was at their wedding. You know, they got married and we all was excited because since COVID, we had not seen each other. So, you know, we're excited and thinking, okay, let's all meet up. I had seen my mom, you know, I had even gave her some money, things were so good in me and my husband's life at this point. So, we was able to give her some money, and I felt good about that. Like, let me help my mother out. Um we're now able to do more things for ourselves now. So now we're able to, when we go on trips, we can get our own Airbnb. So we're doing things like that now. We were so excited about how our lives was picking up. So everybody was excited. But after that, when we all left, me and my husband moved to like the mother-in-law suite up in the house. It was like what you would call like a mini little house to itself. This is where they used to live. And so we end up moving into that space. Once we moved into that space, I got kind of sick. I started not feeling well. And I thought it was COVID because COVID was the biggest thing. If anybody gets sick, you thought you had COVID. So I got sick, and then my grandmother got sick and my aunt got sick, and they was at the bottom of the house. So we all kind of just split out and just never came back connected. It kept coming like that. Like, we would get sick and then we would just spread out. We would get sick again, we would just spread out. So I just was like, okay, forget it. I'm just going to, me being like at that time a germaphobe, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay up here to myself because it seems like y'all always getting sick. And so I started just staying to myself. Once I started staying to myself, that put me in my head, wow, I'm being pulled to not go downstairs. Now I'm being pulled to go by myself. Now I'm being pulled in another direction, but it made me have to look internally inside. I had never ever closed any doors, any windows, any nothings. I had let people have so full access to my life that me starting to have to be a little bit more like, shh, be quiet, was disturbing to a lot of people. And I started to see that. The more me and my husband stayed alone and just did our own thing, we started to get a relationship again. Our relationship was picking up again, strengthening again, because we were by ourselves. We were able to go a little bit more intimate to see each other again. We was able to start seeing our children, seeing what's happening around our children, what's created, what's being connected. So this was God's way of saying, I'm separating and I'm putting everybody into hermit mode. Hermit mode. Boom. Okay, so now we in hermit mode. If you are familiar with hermit mode, you can be in hermit mode for years. Okay, this could be a long situation. And at this time, I was unaware what the hell hermit mode meant and anything like this. I didn't know that this meant God was saying, I'm about to put you into a space where you're about to dig deep within yourself to learn something that is going to be valuable to your forever roots. Like I said, TikTok University. Okay, I started getting on TikTok and I started diving really, really, really deep within myself. And I started seeing other people who sound like me. And wow, you resonate with me. I hear what you're saying. And I started keeping little files and little journals. Then that made me started researching because I'm like, now, me being a thinker, I'm like, I want to know if what you're saying is true. So now let me do my research. I started doing my own research and I would stay up late at night. Sometimes my husband would be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have to study. My mind was just absorbing and wanting to grow at this time. I stopped wanting to eat certain foods and take papaya seeds for parasite flushes. And I'm like, oh, because the parasites are the spirits. I started getting deep and I started connecting. And at this time, I'm still not going downstairs. I'm still up inside of my tower. I'm still inside of my hermit mode, but what I was doing was I would still be on the phone. I was still on the phone and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? You know, because I'm still being pulled. I can still feel that pull to want to call and say what I'm doing and tell them what I've just learned. So I'm telling them at this time everything I'm learning and everything that God is showing me and everything that I'm becoming. And I felt now they were looking at me like, oh, she is one of the crazy ladies with the sign. God started saying, shh, be quiet. Be quiet. To the point where my grandmother would hang up when we would be on three-way and call me back and say, you need to be quiet. They know. I've told them everything you're I've told them. I've told them millions of times before. What you just said, I've said to them. Just leave it alone. And I would be like, what? I started looking at my grandmother and thinking, why are you here? Why haven't you left us? And I'm even saying me included because I'm thinking all the bullshit that they had created and you had created and your mother had created became my bullshit. And now I have been sitting here in the same warfare fighting these same fucking dragons because of the fact that you guys passed them over to me. And if you had this gift of being able to see this shit and guide the way, then why the hell, when they said, I don't want to see it, did you not get the fuck up out of here? I used to be upset with my grandmother. Bad. Because I used to sit back and think, damn, like what was wrong with you? What was wrong with you? But for me to think of how old she was and how much spell work you must have been under for you to say that I'm giving it all up, no matter how much I love God. I gotta give it up because I did some wrongs here. My burdens is here. My crosses is here. So I gotta stay here. As God grew me, as God elevated me, I started to understand everything so much differently. Me watching TikTok and getting into readings, I purchased my own. I said, you know what? I know every last one of those cards when I see them. I know what it means. So I'm going to get my own. I am not going to be afraid of feeling like I know that I have a gift. Because for so long, I had told my family things and they would say, shh, don't say nothing. But I had always had a gift. My grandmother knew. She knew. But she told me to be quiet too. Source said, stay off the phone. Yes. Now I can't even be on the phone. It went from I can't do this, I can't do that. I was like, Source, you know, this is a lot, but stay off the phone. My intuition told me that I need to reposition my communication. There are certain things that I had given access to and people that I gave access to it so willingly, unintentionally, because of the fact that I was under an illusion. I was under an illusion. My upbringing was the reason. My upbringing was the reason why I had allowed so much access. I had been programmed from being a child to be taught, knowing how to lie, knowing how to steal, knowing how to be conniving, knowing how to be this way, knowing how to be that way. Everything that I had been was a soldier for the army of torment. If you even gave love, I was like, okay, this is weird. Get away from me because it makes me feel awkward. This is the reason why my relationship with my husband was so bruised. Because if he would even look at me like I love you, it would scare me because I would think I never felt that emotion before. What does that? Not even from my grandmother did I feel that. Sometimes I felt like I was this puppet in between her and her daughter's I can't stand you war. So let me get you over here so I can say I can be a great mother and you can be a horrible mother just like how you think I was. Oh, let me get her over here so I can take her and I can be this great. It was just crazy. And then now I'm over here being looked at by your baby girl because she feels like I'm trying to take her spot. And all along I just want somewhere to be. But God was now showing me you don't need nobody, my love, but you. You don't need none of it. But you. You is who you need. It is not this person. It is not this relationship. It is not this. It is not that. What fulfills you inside is you. And that's why I want you to get yourself clean. I started to gain a different relationship with myself, and I felt like I'm not going to allow a lot of people access to me no more, and that meant my family too. I couldn't be a part of the bullshit anymore. Being on the phone, going through the gossip and the conversations about each other, talking about each other over the phone like I used to, and telling my business of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I turned my phone off and I went through healing. I started actually asking myself some deep seated questions and pushing some and birthing out some really beautiful answers. I started to read books and started to watch videos and started to just let my mind kind of unweave in a way. And at this time, I was falling in love with myself, which meant falling in love with God in a new and beautiful way. I was at peace. I was at peace. I started to love being alone so much that it was hard for me to want to not come out of this mode, this thing that God said to go into. They became upset that they didn't have access to me anymore. I was in a space of peace and strength now, in liberation, and I was not coming back down. I wasn't coming back down. I finally started putting boundaries over my life and standing up for myself in a way. And it was freeing. Although it started to make me and other people relationships slip away, this time I did not care. The only relationship that I valued with strength now was the one between me and Source. We stopped doing our little praying sessions together on the phone because it was my turn to pray now. I remember laying on my altar and I cried. I thought about how God had healed me. I thought about how God had now strengthened me, how God was pouring into me, how God was showing me things, how God was instilling inside of me. And I just started to say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was basically all I said. I was like, if you never do anything for me, God, I just thank you. I just thank you. I just thank you. After I was done, I felt a chill going up and down my spine, and I was just so happy My womb donor asked me on the phone, "Are you okay?" My grandmother and my aunt was quiet, and they all was like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And I said, "Why? What did I do?" They were like, you didn't ask for anything. You just kept saying thank you." And I was like, "It's because I don't want anything. God did everything. So I am in gratitude. All I want to do is say thank you." I was not on the same I was not on the same spaces as them anymore. I was starting to see the cracks between all of this bullshit, and I was now paying attention to me, paying attention to what I need. How do I feel? It was like God was showing me how to love myself. Because if you love you truly, you won't give a fuck about what no one feels. I would receive phone calls from them and they would be upset. "Why you never show us the kids? Why you never let the kids come downstairs? What's going on with you?" And it was starting to be that God was wanting me to see some certain type of things now in plain sight. My ancestors wanted to connect with me. So I was in the middle of meditation one day and I had seen a white candle go lit. And this was my way of, I guess, my ancestors communicating with me. It's time to create an ancestor altar. I created an altar. It was nothing too much, nothing too big, a table. I had my water. I had some, fire, earth, all those elements, water. And I had a picture of whatever ancestor that I had. But if I didn't have a picture, I would just have a blank page and I would just have either the name written down or calling up my ancestors, the ones that love me most. I venerated my ancestors outside the house every single day. I kept watching videos and they kept telling me how, venerating your ancestors and having that first line of defense is very important and building up that connection with them. So I did this every single day. I poured water and venerated them and spoke to them and continued to work on myself. And I covered and I fast and I venerated my ancestors and I will keep doing it and I will keep doing it. And this is when I started getting messages. I started having vivid dreams and messages that started coming to me, and it was crazy. I couldn't speak to anyone about it because God kept telling me to be silent. I had to trust and start to grow a relationship with my intuition. I remember one day we kind of bumped into each other while I was out with my kids and they were out. And I remember looking upon my aunt's face and seeing shapes within her that was not there before. Her eyes looked different. The way that she smiled looked sinister. Something out of a movie like Smile. I knew that I was making the right choices and I'm keeping my family away from them. I couldn't I couldn't understand what was happening, but it was like God was making it that I would not go around them anymore. And do not take your kids around them, God would say. Do not take your kids around them. My intuition grew stronger and stronger with this. My intuition grew stronger and stronger with this. Every time I wanted to bend, it was no, no, no. Keep them with you. And so I listened. We started doing our own, family Bible studies and talking and doing things together, but we stayed busy. I would take them outside. We would ground, we would connect to Mother Earth, but we stayed busy. We came together and we became a stronger family because of it. At this time, I stopped talking to my family. I wasn't really dealing with them anymore, and now I was going through a lot of spiritual warfare. I was starting to have dreams. One dream in particular was me running through the house. Everybody was sleeping, and the devil was standing in the middle of the house in the middle of flames. Now I can see the devil, but everybody else is sitting there like with this smile on their face, just standing at the beginning of the doorway. And he was just cracking up laughing and looked at me and said, "They can't see me, only you can." This was one of the dreams that I had that was so vivid at this time when I was going through my awakening. I started to sense certain things and see stuff in different ways and hear things in different ways, and it was like God was saying, "I'm not changing the situation, I'm just waking you up." Wasn't anything different. It was just that now that I was seeing, I was hearing things differently. That smirk that you probably would have did before, I wouldn't have picked it up. But now I was starting to pick it up. The fake laugh and the ha ha ha, I probably wouldn't have picked that shit up before. But now with my new set of eyes, I was starting to pick shit up. And I was starting to see that there was a lot of fake stuff around me that I had not paid attention to my entire life. I was around a whole bunch of conniving stuff, and I've always felt like there was something weird, some type of weird energy. That's exactly what I was around. Now, at this time, there was so many different demonic things that was happening in this house. Now, I started staying to myself. There were just noises that we were here and conversations that were starting to be had. People were doing each and everything that they could do for money. It became such a thing about me not wanting to read them anymore. They were upset. They started feeling like, wow, you don't want to give my readings anymore. Why do you want to do that? Why you don't want to show me and tell me what's happening? So they became addicted to now watching readings constantly. Their videos went from once a day to every day. Now I'm watching readings about you. I'm watching readings about me. It was crazy. I started to connect with people on TikTok, connect with people on Facebook. We were building like a spiritual community, and I would tell them what was going on. And I remember one of my sisters at the beginning of my journey, she said, "I went through exactly what you're going through, and what is happening now is it's like it's trying to pull you back into the mess." And it was true. God just kept telling me to remove myself and stay away. And I was okay with doing that now because I was starting to see that the only reason why they wanted readings was to see what abundance, abundance, abundance. This was the number one question. It was never how can I get my shit together? How can I fix stuff? How can I be a better person? It was always abundance, abundance. Show me what it would it look like to what is my money looking like? What is this looking like? Um, my last reading was when I did my aunt's husband. His reading showed that there were some sexual things that had happened to him as a child, and one of the things that happened um was at the hands of his own mother. Me sitting there talking and telling him what the cards were saying was creating him to get upset, very upset. He went against it. He said this was untrue. He started to feel like as if I was trying to attack him. And so, although, my aunt forced him to say, thank you, it became disastrous. Like I could tell by the way that he started acting, treating me and my family, that this was the worst thing that I could have done was done his reading. I knew that there was something that was bothering him about it, and that was the fact that it was the truth. They had always had a weird and very touchy type of relationship. They had always been so inappropriate with each other, and I believe this is why he was so inappropriate with others, and this is why he also got into a relationship with my aunt, with her being a very inappropriate person. I used to try to tell this person certain stuff because I had went through it too, but it but my aunt would get upset, and it would lead to him having to you know submit and listen to what your wife is saying. And I get that me being in a relationship too, I know how you have to kind of say, I'm gonna pick a side. But I have done this many times before, y'all. I see good in people, and I try to tell them about certain things, and when I would do that, it was becoming people getting upset. They would get upset. They don't want to hear that, oh, we in a shit storm. They want you to pretend that this storm ain't happening, because I've been pretending for so long too. And now that you're starting to see that we're in a shitstorm, I already did what you did. I already did this part. But now you're going to have to accept it just like we did. But my thing was, I was not accepting it. I wasn't accepting it anymore. I started to see what was happening around me, and I was like, I got to make some changes. Out of nowhere, my aunt started calling and saying that she wanted me to come downstairs and, oh, I need you to see something. I need you to see something that's very weird. I need you to see something. So I go downstairs, and it is a voodoo doll. She's showing me a picture of a voodoo doll. She's saying that this was something that her mother-in-law made, and she's showing me all these different things. She's like, this is something that she knew about her mother-in-law, that she was very dark and demonic and into a whole bunch of stuff, and how she, has done research and all these things, and her mother-in-law is connected to a coven, a witch cult, and all these different things. Now, imagine you are being told to stay away. Your intuition keeps telling you to stay away. Your intuition keeps telling you to stay away. You have been under this family for so long. And the number one thing they have said was they were Christian. Now they were Baptist. Now they went back to being Christian. Now they were Israelite. Now they were practicing African mythology. Or are you practicing satanic worship? I don't get it, and I'm being serious. There were so many different things that they were practicing so many things at this moment, and it was because of the fact that these people were doing anything now money for money. The number one conversation around the house was money. If I would call my womb donor and speak to her, it was about money. There were so many conversations about money at this time. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it was always like this and I just now was starting to see it. I don't know if this had always been the situation and God was just now pulling the wool from over my eyes. I don't know where this shit had came from, but every waking moment was about money. So demonic shit was happening all over the place. I would look to my grandmother to see if she was still around. Are you okay? Are you seeing what's happening? What the fuck is this? And she was now stone as a brick. She would say nothing. She would say nothing. It was as if somebody had took her very voice. She would say nothing. She would say that she's letting everybody do what they do and she don't have anything to say about it anymore. She would say nothing. Things were coming out at this time, and I was thinking to myself, this is the same family who says they're so fucking Christian. But like I said in millions of other videos, it seems to be so much damn darkness that follows you guys every single where you go. Every single where you go. That same night, her son started to howl and scratch at the carpets in her bedroom, slobbing at the mouth while she's trying to cover him. And I'm sitting there watching this happen to my cousin, and in disbelief. There was something happening to this house, and it was happening fast. The relationships was crumbling down, and I was starting to see the layer of spell work and the layer of demonic possession that was over this house. I did a reading, and I started to ask God some questions, and God started telling me things like, you need to get the fuck away from them. You don't see what's going on, but we do. I wasn't clear on what was happening around me. So I had already started watching different readers. And so I'll say, okay, you know what? Let me get a reading done. I get a reading done, and the reader says the exact same thing that my cards had said. She's told me, to be honest, you already know what you know, you've seen what you've seen, and there is some things that's about to happen. You need to remove yourself, and you need to remove yourself now. At this same time, my ancestors was connected to me and telling me to do things like create chickens foot necklaces and do all types of different things, and everything that I was doing at this time was ways of protecting myself away from this spell work. There was things that was happening around the house that was starting to be like a scary fucking movie. I would hear growling coming through the baseboards. I would have to tie my door closed at night, and still yet in the grand rising I would wake up and the door would be cracked open. There were so many weird things that was happening. Dead birds would be falling dead around the house. There were so many things that was happening around this damn house, and nobody was saying a thing. A tree almost fell and took off half of the house. This house was under attack. At this time, my aunt's husband was connecting with one of his cousins across seas. He was saying that his cousin was telling him about, different religions and practices, and he wanted to, gain closer to his cousin because this way he would, just learn about different things. And at this time, to be honest, they kept speaking about moving to Africa. They wanted to move to Africa. This is something that my aunt said that she had wanted to do for so long in her life. And so, this was something her husband shared, was the love of wanting to move to Africa. So, he was like, he's so happy he found out he have a friend that was able to translate and give him a lot of different information. And his cousin was a Babalawa. I didn't know what a Babalawo was, but my aunt would, quickly explain it to us all. My grandmother was not for it. She kept on trying to think to herself, why was the family switching? I started to do meditation and I was into chakras and things such as that. At this particular time, I was still kind of like keeping my readings to myself. Bible studies had stopped, and everybody was kind of like just pulling away from their original, practice. So my grandmother was really upset. She kept on saying, the family is going to hell, and, everybody is now doing different things, and she wasn't down with it. But my aunt and her husband would speak of, a lot of deity worshiping and a lot of practice about, money rituals. The only thing that I ever heard them really speak about was money rituals. you know um my aunt told me one time that she and her husband had paid to get somebody then sacrifice the chicken because of the fact that she wanted to have money opening up for her. She would get these readings all the time from her Babalawa, and she would tell me, oh, I had him read you just lightly, and I had him read your husband, your kids just lightly to see what you guys, are y'all coming into, and how long will it take for you guys to come into certain things, because at this time we were still waiting on our pending case for my husband's father. So she would always tell us that she was checking on that, and I'm checking on that, and she would check on our stuff all the time. Sometimes it became so frequent that me and my husband used to look at each other like, why in the hell are you always checking on our stuff? Like, this is becoming fucking weird. If it wasn't her checking through her Babalawa, she would be on YouTube watching videos telling me that she's checking for my zodiac, looking at readings. One day, she starts asking me what's happening with me and my readings. And I told her, I'm reading, I love it. It brings me close to God. And I really like it. I'm getting better with my cards. So she asks me, could I do a reading for her? So I started doing a reading for her, and once everybody else seen me start doing readings for her, my grandmother wanted one, and then my mother came out, she wanted one as well. And they would even have me read them over the phone. I started doing a lot of reading the family at this point. you know um but God was telling me that I needed to stop. I told my aunt, I was like, God is telling me that I cannot read you anymore, because not only do you watch readings, but you have someone reading you already. And it's not, I guess, okay for you to have so many readers. I'm still new to this, but this is what God is telling me. So I chalked it up to God was saying, don't read her anymore due to the fact that she has somebody reading her no more. So I just stopped reading her. Plus it was just weird, like every time I would read her energy, it was just weird, like something was kind of like trying to push me out of her energy. So I stopped reading her. At this time, I just started getting nudges that we needed to move. We needed to get the fuck up out of there. So I started telling my husband, there's something that's happening, and I'm trusting and I'm believing in God, and we need to start moving. Now, usually when I would say this, my husband would be thinking, okay, cool, yeah, we're leaving. This is what you say all the time. We're leaving. Cool, cool, cool. But I was not playing this time. I was serious. I was sick and tired of it. We was under attack. My family kept being under attack. Every 5 seconds, we were not feeling well due to the fact that we were not, come downstairs and join the family and do certain stuff. We was facing a lot of horrible dreams, even down to my little kids. My little kids started having dreams, vivid dreams. So was my husband, and they were sending attacks every single day. So I felt like, you know what, it's time for me to get the fuck up out of here. After me having my reading, it was clear that we needed to move. It was like ever since I had given my aunt that reading, and God told me to stop reading her, not just her, but stop reading everybody. Stop doing readings. Go into a place inside of yourself, and I need you to see some things. I need you to open up your eyes. But I was still under so much spell work. God said, okay, I need you to get yourself out of here. I need you to get out of here because there's something that I need you to see. My son came to me and told me that he had a dream that it was a demon on top of him, and that the demon thing or whatever it looked like, he said, was touching him inappropriately. This was some of the very disturbing dreams that we were starting to get. Just one of them. Just one of them. It doesn't matter how much I would keep us away or keep us confined to our space. The attacks became bigger and bigger and bigger with every day of us staying there. I didn't know how the hell we was gonna leave. I didn't know what we was gonna do, but God kept saying to let let the energy know that we are ready to leave, and everything would start to fall into alignment. And that's what happened. Things started to come in, and they started to come in with very swift force. So it looked like that we were able to now really leave. We packed up our stuff. We told my aunt that we was going to live with somebody else, and we packed up our stuff and we left. It was hard, not knowing where we were going to go and what we was going to do, but we trusted and we believed in God. The day that we left, I remember looking at my grandmother and feeling like, although I love you, I am sorry that I cannot stay here in the midst of this storm with you, because of the fact that you want to tie yourself to your children because of the what they've been through. I have to leave and do my life and go get help and healing because I know that it's out there. Like I said, I still cover my grandmother with everything that she went through, with everything that she had to end up, um, coming away from at the end, and knowing that this is my life. This is it. Even my family going and having to put my things in the car and in the U-Haul, and know that when I left this time that I was never going to deal with none of them. This time when I left, I told myself I wasn't going to deal with none of them. None of them. God was saying this time when you leave, you are cutting them off, and I am going to teach you and to show you how to do this and strengthen you in order to keep this going. The day that we got the U-Haul and we were leaving their house due to everything that had happened, everything. And like I said, if I did a whole, longer of what the hell I went through, exactly, this would be even longer than what it is now. With everything that I went through in that house, I decided to finally pack my shit and leave. The day that we left, although my son had been with my aunt for that entire time that we were there, and she claimed this to be her favorite. He did not even want to hug her before we left. I used to think that if a child was being mistreated or mean, or somebody was, being evil to them or beating them or something like that, that this was my way of knowing that my child was, having something done to them. But I soon found out that a predator could be so sweet. A predator can be so sweet to your child, give them candy, say that they're my favorite, be so nice to them. My aunt used to have my son come in her room, and she would give him candy and rub oils on him and always say that this was her baby the same way that she did me. But little did I know that these were her ways of covering what she was doing to my son. Before I left, I used to, see my grandmother as I was getting boxes and things, packing my stuff. And I remember one day I passed my grandmother and my aunt in the car, and I, wanted to say hi to my grandmother. She barely looked at me. I didn't know if it was because I was leaving and she was upset. I felt like, damn, maybe you're mad because I'm finally picking me and I'm saying that I can't do this shit anymore. I'm not going to be happy with myself if I stay in this sinking sand for the rest of my life, all because of the fact that I'm saying I love my family. But what about myself? My grandmother couldn't look me in my face because she had known what my aunt had done. She knew. But because of the fact that she wanted to cover it up too, she couldn't even look me in my face. At the time that we were living with my family, my aunt and her husband had let us use, their one of their cars. Um, he would get multiple cars all the time, and we didn't have vehicles, so he was letting us use his vehicle. Spirit said, "Clean this vehicle up. Make sure you clean it real good. Make sure you get it detailed and give this car right back." I gave the car right back to them and got it detailed and everything. I didn't know what kind of vehicle would I get. I didn't know what the hell would I do. I didn't know anything. But once I started to say to myself that this is what I was doing, and once I started to show God that this is what I was doing, everything started lining up for me within perfect time. I was able to get a car. I was able to get a place, and I was able to move out of my family house so smoothly. With by the time that they realized that I was moving, I was already out of there. We moved into an Airbnb for 3 months. We put money down for the Airbnb for 3 months. We had started getting some of the money back for my husband's father's case, and we put money down for 3 months. It wasn't even a full month before my son, 4 years old, came out and told me that my aunt had molested him. I blamed myself. I felt like it was my fault because I moved in the house with my family, knowing that this person had the relationship with the minor, knowing that this person was caught with younger people sometimes, and even her husband was younger than her. Um, Even knowing that my brother has said that she did something to him before, but me always seeing her as this humanitarian, and seeing her as this good great aunt, and seeing her as all these things, the way the family portrayed her to be, it kind of like somehow erased what I knew. I was upset. I started to heal myself, and my memory started coming back, and I could even remember now that I was even touched myself by this very same person. But God said, I want to do something with you. I want to show you that this is more than what you think. This is a chain. This is a link. God started showing me different things, and recreating me, my family, our mindset, and everything that we are, and how we think about things now. I knew that I did not want to hide this. I knew that I did not want to cover this up like I did in the past. I knew I did not want to act like this shit didn't happen. I knew I wanted to do something different, stand up, do something different. We have been taking spell work and taking them trying to ruin me and my husband's relationship through spells and all this stuff and doing all of these things behind the closed doors, like if I or like if I would never be aware to it, although I read them sometimes. I was your reader, and you sat back and thought that the things that you did behind spirit that we would not be aware to. God kept me in a space of hermit mode and kept me protected with me to protect myself. This is what I did. This is what I did. With every single way they told me to protect myself. And when I did it, I gained more and more protection. I was getting hit not just from the spell work of my family, but still the spell work of my warlock, still in my sacral energy after all these years, still sending spell work, still being communicative with my family. When I had my baby girl in the hospital, my sister and brother was calling my phone to tell me about the fact that he had children. And I was thinking to myself, well, how in the fuck would you know that unless you are still communicating with my ex? And that's what they were doing. I started to look at my life being alone in a space now where I was away from them and started to pay attention how every single thing was starting to connect. My family had never left my ex alone. My ex had never left my family alone. In fact, my family and my ex had started to become way more than the relationship that they stated that they had, and this was all for abundance. This was all for money. This was all for clout. This was all for a certain status. This was all for things because they were hiding something. They were hiding the fact that in the darkness, they were doing this and they had done this to many of people before. And I knew. I knew the truth and I knew their true faces. To my past, I don't miss anything. I'm so happy that I went through everything that I went through because it definitely grew me and it strengthened me. It forced me to be pushed into a space where under that pressure, it's either I could fold or I could be created into a diamond. I learned how to protect myself from some major spell work that was trying to not kill me, just me, but my children as well. Spell work that took away a lot. It took away a lot, but it also grew me to know how to protect myself from a lot. Within these spaces, I got hit in so many different directions, my relationships, my finances, my beauty, just everything. Still to this day, I am still being attacked by this warlock, my family, this craziness, and a lot of you are being attacked by certain people, and they will do it in the spiritual aspect because they don't want to do anything 3D. They're too afraid because they know that you are now in a space where, like this, if you see anything that you can use in this 3D form to get this person locked up, you are going to do it. You're going to go to court and you're going to press charges. That's happening. So they try to stay in the 3D. They start to stay in this 5D because they know if they bring their ass out of that, they're going to go to jail. They have been doing this for so long, for some of you years. For some of you years, and you are now waking up to everything that has happened, and you are not leaving it in hatred, just like me. We leave in love. I leave in love everything that my family has tried to plant inside of me. You know, the bad, I've healed through that, and I'm healing through it. And this is something that's generational, so I'm still healing through it. But I have a lot of gratitude for everything that you have thrown my way because it has created so much strength within inside of me and has also taught me how to be a better person and individual for not just me, for other people. Everything that you sent to destroy my relationship has put my relationship under strain, but it has made my relationship so much stronger and so much beautiful. I know that now that I really love this person because everything that I've been through with this person and still came out like this. I know for a fact this is the love of my life, and for it to be this much attack over my union shows me that this is the one for me as well. So, like I said, if anything it did was highlight that as well. Highlight the fact that this was my person. Highlight the fact that highlight the fact that I would prevail. I am sorry that you all are still stuck in that you don't get it and you still won't even see past your ego and all your insecurity and all your rage even after you have watched this whole video. Most of my ops will watch this video, okay? Most of them will be the ones that finish this shit from the beginning to the end, and still you won't get it. Still, you will say that I'm lying. Still, you will say that this is not the truth. Still, you will say this is bullshit. And you will try to flip the narrative to make yourself look good and to bring yourself back into the light. But guess what? I don't give a fuck. This is my story and it is true. This is my testimony. I was a victim of spell work. For my entire life, I stayed in a family and in a relationship with a warlock and a family that was a part of a cult. And they tried to pull me down every single day. Even after I packed my shit and left, I could still feel them. They're angry, bitterness, evil eyes. Their rage, the conversations of them speaking, talking on the phone, trying to locate me and my family so that they can say horrible things about us. But this is no more. This is no more giving you strength. This is no more giving you power. This is no more allowing you to be the type of energies that will try to punk us or make us afraid or bully us into certain spaces. We are done. I am removing my mask, and I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this shit for me. I don't care how this video looks. And I don't care if it was chopped up in all kind of ways and you feel like that this was something that's untrue. This is my truth. This is the truth, and you know it is. I thank everybody for listening. I thank my son. If you would not have stood up for yourself and told the truth at 4, my love, I would never be walking into my life now and going back and fixing some things and telling some truths. You are strong. You are a warrior. And you reminded me that telling the truth, it may not always look good or feel good, but at the end, it's going to be good. I thank you for having the courage to speak up, because in that, you made your mother speak up. I love you guys. And all of you that's going through your spiritual awakenings, pull close to God and know that God is awakening you. And there are some things that you're going to learn when you wake up. But just know that everything is going to be okay. I am happy. I'm in love. I'm guided. I'm protected. My life is so much more peaceful, so much more great, so much more in God's design. I'm safe in God's arms, and I know that. My entire life, I looked to what other people thought and how they felt and gave them so much of myself. But now I take time for me. I'm happy. Congratulations with your spiritual awakening. Ashe.